Hi, and welcome to another episode of NCBA's Coffee Break. I'm Nathan Willner, I'm your host. And today, as part of our Getting to Know Your NCBA Leaders series, we have one of NCBA's leaders, one which I work closely with on a regular basis, Eric Logvin. So welcome, Eric.
Hi, thanks, Nathan. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat with us. So let's get right to it. Why is serving as an NCBA leader such an important part of your professional life, and how does it affect your law practice?
Well, back when the association was called NARCA, which is when we were first involved, I was right in law school, and Jim, who is now retired, but he was the managing partner at the time, said that it was basically the primary place to get hot information that we needed. The listserv that was going on would keep us up to date. The conferences were really valuable. CLE, he always, and I think correctly, suggested and said we should be getting very practice specific CLEs that are very valuable for what we do, because there's a lot of risk in what we do. And of course, going to the conferences for the CLEs, there was always clients at the conferences too. They used to be the kind you could get. And then eventually it turned into the kind that wanted to meet with you because they already were your client. And so as compliance kind of swept through the industry, it became pretty regular to meet all of your clients there. These days, our need, I think, as an organization for advocacy has changed. And I think that NCBA is a well-run organization. It's well-connected in DC, and it's on the front lines of what's happening in our industry. I can't imagine practicing without it. And I personally continue to this day with all of our attorneys, ask them to get NCBA or collection creditors' rights specific CLEs. But we, as time goes on, we just continue to build on that. And now as the state creditor bar portions have been built out, I personally get a lot of value from that because I'm the president of the Arizona Creditor Bar Association after being very active for 10 plus years in Arizona. Now I'm the president of that organization, and I pull a lot of information that goes right over to our group and vice versa. And I think that as time goes on, we'll continue to strengthen that. I actually speak at Arizona State University's law school a couple times a year at the mediation clinic. Here, the lower court mediations are all done by volunteers, and most of them are 2L and 3L law students. So I basically go there to tell them how great we are, so that later on, when they're in our mediations, they're like, "Oh, these guys know what they're doing." But one of my slides when introducing a firm is a list of associations that we participate in and why we're active in each. And NCBA is at the top of the list. And I encourage each of them on my slides to keep an eye out as their own career progresses, that there can be real value to an industry organization that's dialed in to specifically enhancing your practice.
That's wow, that's great information, and I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, especially at the law schools. Maybe we'll have talk a little bit more about that in a second. But before we do, as being a member of the board of NCBA, maybe talk a little bit about your background of, that transition from law school. What drew you to the practice of creditors' rights law in the first place?
Well, I'm going to be an outlier as to this particular topic because I went to law school to be a creditors' rights attorney. That almost never happens unless you're kind of born into the business. In some ways, I suppose my dad was a collection manager at an agency back before I was born, and I had no interest in ever going down that path at all. He never really invited me. I did my whole own thing. And then later on in life, basically, a collection attorney married my mother-in-law and said, maybe you should go to law school. And I just have this memory of my wife hearing that over dinner one night and going, maybe you should go to law school. And that's what led me down my path. And so I actually started law school at night. I know there's a lot of other lawyers that went to school at night. I think there's some value to that. I worked at the law firm during the day, and then I would go to school at night. And so I did that for 3 years when I graduated. And so if I wasn't doing this kind of law, I don't think I would be practicing as a lawyer. I'd be doing something else entirely. But this is why I did it, and this is why I love it.
So let's ask a couple questions about your practice. How many attorneys are in your practice? Mm-hmm. Do you operate in multiple states? And how long have you been an NCBA member?
Yeah. So right now, now that Jim's been retired for a couple of years, we have 7 attorneys. That includes 1 dedicated commercial department. I have 1 attorney working there. We have 2 attorneys that handle subrogation, because we do have a subrogation practice going on at the same time, which is a good parallel to the collection world. But we have 7 total. We are practicing in Arizona, Nevada, and Washington. We have offices in Arizona and Washington, Nevada. It's remote right now. And so we're pretty well covering all 3 states for both original creditors and debt buyers in all 3 places. And so we have been active at NCBA since when it was NARCA. I believe Jim was going to conferences and was involved as early as like 03 or 04. I showed up for the first time in 2007. I remember reading the emails on the listserv in 2007. And so we've been active as a firm since at least then.
So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of activity going on in your life, especially with multiple states. But in a sort of a general sense, what would you say the best advice you ever received was?
It was have different mentors. So, and which I did follow through. So this is like kind of meta advice, if you will. I had one of the first people that I knew years ago said, you should have a successful business mentor that has done either your specific business very, very well or been successful in business for a long time. And then probably separately, a successful family mentor, because that like a family leader mentor, because that particular business guy didn't have a family and he was aware that he didn't have a family. And so he was like, you're going to have different questions and struggles as time goes on. You should find someone that's pretty good at business that also did a good job raising a family. Maybe they're a generation ahead of you. And I kind of had that person. And so I had a person tell me things about, in some ways, putting my foot on the brake in my business life so that my family could advance, because I only have my girls for a small amount of time. It's already halfway over. My kids are 14 and 11. And so, and my wife's successful in her own corporate career. And so the 2 of us together have had to make choices and sacrifices. But at the same time, I was able to balance that with a lot of things from the business mentor, which included, over the years, I still meet with him almost once a quarter. And he knows the business so well. We talk about all kinds of things. But having those 2 different people has allowed me to balance them against themselves. And I feel like it's made me a better business owner and a better father, which, I'm going to be forever, but I only have so long to influence my kids. And then it's back to phase 2 there.
Yeah. So to kind of move into a different topic and just to get, your feel on this,
Yeah.
how has AI changed the way your firm operates? I mean, that's the hottest topic now is AI. Are you using it? Are you not? And what do you see on the future horizons?
So I actually have a list of things we're trying to get done. We are, other than using a specific, what do they call it, a walled off version of a chat GPT, like an advanced one. We're using it to help with coding and getting better at moving data around, asking it questions. I personally use Excel a lot, and I'm able to come up with some really cool stuff that is obvious and boring. And if I was an Excel master, I already know it, but I don't. In terms of like next level AI, I've now got a list of handling phone calls in a different way. That I have a new vendor that we're talking to. I'm talking to another vendor about like large scale PDF, not just OCRing, optical character resolution, but like recognition, but like actually reading it and telling me and extracting information that we can then compare to the data, looking for ways to speed things up accurately that we can rely on. And so we haven't pulled the trigger on any of it yet, because I feel like a lot of these AI vendors, for us, of a firm of my size anyway, they're just coming online kind of recently. AI has been floating around in the industry for a couple of years. And at some of the other industry groups that maybe they're not as conservative as we are as lawyers, they're more pedal to the metal. It's like, try it out, see what happens. And that freaks me out. We have to be able to explain it to the client, to the bar. And so I think in the next 12 to 24 months is when things are really going to start to shift for AI in our world.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And, when I start seeing it as part of the iPhone 16, it comes with it. So if every American conceptually is using AI, then, business can no longer just, ignore it or think like it's the newfangled,
Right.
whatever. This is, it's here to stay. So
Yeah.
definitely, I'm glad that you're figuring it out because we all are figuring it out together. So one final question as we get to the end of our cup of coffee, so to speak. And you mentioned law school, so we'll go right back to that. What advice would you give a third-year law student today?
Yeah, I would say think about the life that you really want and keep your eyes open. It's not purely about trading time for money. There are firms that exist like ours that, people don't work 80, 100-hour weeks. They don't grind away for 5 years on some partner track, but it's a different life. The people that work for us have a lot of flexibility. They raise families. They've said after working for us, attorneys after 2 or 3 years, okay, I'm good here. Like, I'm good. This is the trade-off that I want. This is the life that I want, rather than, it's not always about big money. Not to say we can't make money, but there's a lot of value in having your time to do things with your pets and your family and your kids, things that you want to do. And you can find that if you keep looking.
No, wow, that's great advice. Especially pursuing the life that you want. I don't think you could have said it any better than that. So with that, thank you so much, Eric, for taking the time to chat with us and letting the members of the NCBA know more about you and about your practice. And with that, thank you everyone for listening. And Eric, hopefully you'll come back to talk some more in a future episode. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And we look forward to seeing you at our next coffee break.
Thanks,
Be
Nathan.
well.